Olá, sejam bem-vindos a mais uma edição do programa IAgora Entrevista. Hoje nós temos a honra de receber Karin Forssell, diretora do Programa de Mestrado em Learning, Design and Technology na Stanford Graduate School of Education. Seja muito bem-vinda, Karin. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Karin.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Karin, your work integrates learning, design, and technology, very fascinating field. Do you see AI shaping the future of education, particularly in the context of learning design?
Oh, absolutely. It's something that's still very much evolving. It's new to us still, and we don't know where it's going to go exactly, but there are two things that have me very excited. One is this idea that we can create experiences for students where the students are more creative, where they get to generate answers and explore and discover more than just consume the knowledge that we have. Which is related to the second thing that I find extremely interesting. I think we're going to need to rethink what students need to learn. So the curriculum that we teach. Right now, we already say, okay, you have to learn these things to be successful, to get into college, to get a good job. But if AI can do all these things for you, then why do we need to learn them ourselves? Not that we don't need to understand what's a good answer and what's not. So I like to think about how it felt several decades ago when we first started working with calculators in the classroom. And the question was, do students need to learn to do long division on paper if they have a calculator? And the answer is you have to know if it's a good answer. You need to know how to set up the problem, but you don't necessarily need to do the math in your head. Unless you like to, in which case, great, go ahead.
Yes, that's very fascinating how everything will change in education, and especially because we're going to have a lot of data, and
Yes.
this will also exponentially change everything. So you have an extensive experience as a teacher and technology specialist. How do you envision AI enhancing the adoption of new technologies by teachers? And especially, what challenges do you think that the teachers will face in this process?
Oh, yeah. One thing that's interesting about the conversation about AI is it's not a question of whether we will use AI in education. It's here. We make a distinction between an adoption technology that is optional versus an arrival technology. It's real in the world. It's difficult to get away from it. When I'm writing my emails, it auto-completes whether I want it to or not. I mean, I can choose to accept or not, but it's there. It's embedded in the tools we use. So on some level, the adoption for teachers is easier because the tools, it just works. And I like to say a lot of times with education technology that an important piece of it is how usable is the user interface. In teaching, we have traditionally in education technologies had things that were designed for somewhere else, like business, that we had to repurpose for education, or we had tools that were designed for education that were beta, that were not all that elegant or that well resourced. I think here now, the tools that we have to use and embed generative AI in education technology are so much more easy to use that it will in some ways be easier for teachers because it will be just very natural. That said, we need to back up a little bit and think carefully about why we want to use these tools. And of course, AI, broad topic, natural language processing, already very useful. The idea that we could hear what students say, that they could talk in, it's almost very sci-fi, very Star Trek to be able to just talk to the computer. That opens up a lot of possibilities for classrooms, for teachers who have students with special needs and so on. But the challenge, I think, for teachers in adopting these technologies is using them in meaningful ways that really align with our goals for students learning. It's one thing that the students are using them in their home and private lives. I don't actually think that just because you're great at social media or gaming, that translates into using technology in useful ways for the curriculum. So I think for teachers, the challenge is going to be to stay focused on the learning outcomes and understanding how each student can learn better using new tools.
But as you're in Stanford, please let us know, what are you researching in Stanford, and exactly on what you just said, that is very important. What do you think? What are the new research? What is happening in Stanford that can help us here?
Well, as it happens, we have a whole new initiative called the Stanford Accelerator for Learning. And this is a university-wide initiative that is housed here at the Graduate School of Education and focused, as the name suggests, on learning. And loads of different professors are exploring what's possible in education using AI, and also to support learning. Education, of course, has many different facets that are not focused on students learning, but also the running of schools, the organizations, the things we can do with AI to predict absenteeism. When is the flu going to come through, and when should we prepare to have more substitute teachers? There's a lot of other ways that we can use data, use AI to help run schools better. But at the Stanford Accelerator for Learning, we have a number of different projects going on. You can explore on our website a little bit, but there was a seed grant. There's actually another seed grant that is helping professors start research around AI in learning. Couple of examples. There's a project that is looking at how teachers can individualize math curriculum by Professor Dora Dembski, where they're exploring sort of the individualization of the tasks, of understanding what each child needs to know, where their gaps are, where they need to have some support, and that can suggest. We're seeing fun stuff with field trips. How can you do remote field trips so that if you can't go to a place, the students can still experience it in virtual reality? We have a lot of really great work looking at special needs students. So there's lots of different initiatives that are all sort of starting to bear fruit right now and starting to get published.
Amazing. Very, very nice. For sure, you're going to put the website link here in the description.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yes. And you direct in Stanford the GSE Makery, a makery space in Stanford. How can AI-driven tools impact maker education, especially in terms of fostering creativity and, of course, collaborative learning?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I find really fascinating, with the idea that students can start to make things as a way of prompting learning. It's highly individualized. People have different approaches, different skill levels coming in. So the question, really, it's a unique teaching situation where you need to meet students where they are and then move them forward. And honestly, sometimes meeting them where they are means getting them in the door and making students feel like, yes, you are welcome here. Yes, this is a place for you. So we've been working a lot on things like getting a variety of offerings so that students can come in, do what interests them, explore, spark curiosity, meet other people, and work. Makerspaces are a very collaborative environment. Traditionally, you have people who know a little bit more who help people who know a little bit less, and just explore together. So how can AI support this? And there's a lot of different ways that that's possible. One is being able to just go online and ask for ideas. Maybe there are examples in this space, but maybe you have like, oh, I really want to make a musical instrument. There's nothing here. I wonder, could I do something like this? And actually, ChatGPT and other generative AI tools are pretty good at that, of saying, here are 10 ideas you could do if you'd like to think of more than two. It's infinitely, generative on different ideas. So one idea for AI is that. Another is maybe you are using a tool that nobody else in the space already knows, or you need to sort of get some just-in-time help. There's nobody available right then. You can ask for a tutorial, and it will give you step-by-step instructions. Caveat, of course, AI in its current form doesn't always give you the right answer. So you have to be a little bit, stepped out. Does this make sense? Which I think is a good problem to have. Students should be learning always ask, does this make sense? But it tends to be pretty good on technical answers. So I want to learn to use the 3D printer or the embroidery machine or the vinyl cutter. How do I do it with this machine? And it can pull up answers pretty quickly. And then one more thing that's really exciting that we're just starting. So I actually have two makerspaces. One is the traditional sort of digital and analog hands-on makerspace. And then we have just started again under the Stanford Accelerator for Learning. 2 weeks ago it opened. We have a makerspace for generative AI. So yes, we call it the AI Tinkery. And the idea is you come, you play, you explore, you discover. There are people there to help you out. There are provocations on the wall to suggest things that you can try, spark discussions. We'll be doing workshops. We'll be convening educators. We'll be posting resources on our website, so you can check out that website as well. And the really intriguing piece, I think, between having those two spaces, and we're learning a lot about how to run the AI Tinkery from our experiences at the GSE Makery. The pass back and forth between the two is really cool. So you could sit down in the AI Tinkery and say, I want to 3D print, think of a monument or a house or a plant or something like this, but I want to change this part of it. Can you do that and give me the file that I can then take to the Makery and print?
Wow, amazing.
So it's cool. Yeah, there's so many possibilities.
And from everything that you said, I'm looking forward to get to know it in person. I'm thinking everybody that will be listening to us also we would like at least to check the link that you're going to send us about that. And I can tell you that from what you said, what really inspired me is when you said that the education will be individualized. And then I saw for the first time, because everybody says that, but for the first time, I saw how artificial intelligence will help us to grow as human beings, because sometimes our education is like very strict, like chemistry, biology. So we need a transdisciplinary knowledge that will flourish with each person. Because in fact, each person has a different way to grow. And then we have an education that will help the flourishing of individuals. That's very interesting and challenging. And in your research on teacher technological, pedagogical content knowledge, you have explored how teachers integrate technology into their practice. So how do you think AI can support teachers in this endeavor? And what skills educators need to make the most of AI in the classrooms?
Ooh, big question for a short time. I'm thinking primarily about teachers as learners. So one thing is that all of these things that I described that students can do with AI, teachers can do with AI as well. So if they don't have access to a community of learners where they can ask these questions of people, one of the ways I like to think of generative AI is it's that really smart and helpful friend that you wish you could sit and talk to all the time, and that has a lot of good provocative answers, not necessarily doing it for you, but giving you answers that help you to reason for yourself. And if you had that friend to ask you, how should I think about this problem in my classroom, or how can I change this lesson, or how can I integrate these different learning outcomes into a project that will engage my students, it can give you lots of ideas. And you can ask it to probe a little bit for, explain what you mean by this, or where can I read more about that? Or where is there some research or some interesting cutting edge work being done in scholarship? Who's doing this work? You can ask it and it will tell you.
Yes, that's absolutely fascinating. But unfortunately, our first part of the program is over. Então é isso, pessoal. Nosso programa IAgora Entrevista vai fazer um breve intervalo. Não saiam daí, voltamos já.